So, hello everybody and welcome to this special live stream here on our YouTube platform. My name is of course David from the Davyd and Bella QPW channel, and shortly I'll be joined by the other half of the team, the one and only beautiful Bella Alvaran. So today we're having a bit of fun, having a few nightmares with the tech. Of course, whenever we go to do these things, we have some technological meltdowns, but that may also be part of what is going on at the energy level with the sun. So we want to have a little bit of fun with today's call. And thank you to all of those sending questions in. We've got some interesting ones, and thank you to all of us who've joined us live already. This call is probably going to be about an hour or so today, and so it's just us having a bit of fun, but also taking a pulse on what's in everybody's minds right now. What are the major topics that are bothering you? I can see from the chat box that there are already some good questions, some questions from the tribe, particularly around timelines and Tartaria. So we're going to have a look at all of those today. But first of all, what I wanted to do is also just play this little video that is part of what we want to have a look at. So just bear with me a second while I switch to this. Right, so just wanted to play that little video there, everybody, as it's been a topic of discussion over the last few days. So hopefully you could all see that having some monitor tech issues here, so having to play around a little bit blind on the screen, so apologies for that. But this is something that we were discussing over the last few days, right, Bella, and looking at, maybe we should introduce the other half of the team. She's been quietly monitoring everybody's questions. Please say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Super excited to be here live. We're still getting used to it. We're not the super techie savvies, so we're still learning. But we see the need now to have a more direct contact and to address quite a few questions and to have a more open conversation on many big topics that maybe we haven't talked about here on YouTube. We have covered some of them in our website, but now we're going to start covering lots of more expansive topics.
Right, so the reason I wanted to start this little sort of live call with that video clip, and apologies it didn't quite play the way I wanted it to, but again, still getting used to these things, is to kind of hone in on what people are thinking about this particular crop circle. This is the first of the year in Britain, in Wiltshire. We watched a very interesting video yesterday from another colleague who runs another channel who went to investigate it. He's a paranormal skeptic, but met a beautiful group of people there who were explaining to him what they thought this was all about. So we also concurred with their particular thinking, and we're going to try and share some of the points that we think are important about this, but also to link it to some of the big questions that some of you have been sending in, particularly looking at things like parallel timelines, Tartaria, the dissolution of the veil, And what does all of this mean moving forwards? So with that in mind, what this particular crop circle looks to be suggesting is an ending and a beginning. It's a very interesting sort of Celtic knot inside a square. Some people have postulated this could represent the four pillars of the Temple of the Christed Consciousness. Definitely think that that's quite possible. But then we've got this interlinking knot that runs through the middle of it, which could also, if we were to unfold it, could also be a circle. So I find it interesting that there's the circle and the square, because one of the questions that I was faced with this week was how do I put a square pin into a round hole, and trying to work out how to do that, sort of seemingly imponderable conundrums that didn't want to resolve themselves, and in the end the only way was through. So perhaps this is also showing us different ways that we can think outside of the box when being faced with seemingly impossible conundrums, and perhaps that's also indicative of where we might be feeling we are right now in the collective process. Many people feeling like they've hit a wall, they've hit a glass ceiling, not sure what's coming next, seem to be going around in circles. All of these kinds of different symptoms, I would suggest perhaps part of the energetic patterns that are hitting us right now as part of the Ascension process, as part of the photon belt, and of course, the activity of the sun.
Yes. So we want to start, we will address a few things around the crop circle, but I wanted to start with the astrology, because as you know, with the quantum compass, we have been navigating using both the astrology and the Mayan time and magic, and everything that we have, like the plants, have been helping us a lot. But this moment, on the 25th of May, it seems like there is a very important reset point for which we have been preparing for quite a while. So we know that Saturn is entering Aries, the beginning of the cycle of the astrological wheel. And we know that Neptune is already there. So that is a very important reset moment of a new time, new structures, and now being more supported in our dreams. So we have been working a lot with our tribe, trying to get them to a point of center themselves, dream, what do they want to do they know their mission, do they know their life purpose, so that we can all start dreaming. As we know, all of the systems that we've had up to now know how powerful we are, the power of co-creation that we have. So they have made us put our attention and our focus on the bad news, on death, on all of those things that we've talked about for quite a while. And this moment is so clear for disclosure. Everything is happening. You could even follow the trial of Didi, and I don't know if you've been paying attention to that, but just an example on how the information and the truth is being put out there, and then it's going to start linking to everything. Politics, the Vatican, banking systems, technology, everything is going to start threading through everything that we're hearing about it. So we feel this is the moment where the masses will get that point of, you have to see, the veil is down now. So people will have to see what hasn't been working and the systems that had us under their control, but not anymore. So that's why we're coming out now to talk about all of those big topics.
Right, so one of the remits here at QPW is to track forwards on the timelines, or the now unified universal timeline that we've been back on for a few months now, and to try and read the energy patterns as they come towards us. Now, first and foremost, we use the Mayan Zolkin, the 1320 calendar, to feel into the 13-day wave spells, the energetic imprints that give us the overlay for the container that is basically going to take up the next sort of 2 weeks of our life. So that's the first imprint we use, but we also look ahead at where the astrology is going to land, which when we look at Western astrology, what we're seeing really is a manifestation into 3D of energy that's already I guess we can say formed itself in the non-physical realm. So by looking ahead at the incoming conjunctions and transits and so on, we can start to build up a more complex energetic pattern of what is going on, but we can also follow a storyline, which myself and Bella have been laying out through the Quantum Compass, and also myself and Leslie with the Cosmic History Codes, looking at the stellar nation cosmic karmic imprints behind the astrology. So this is giving us lots and lots of layers to work with in the energetic realms.
And I will mention a few of the stars that will get triggered during this call. There are some very important ones to pay attention to around 0 degrees of Aries for those of you that have been doing stellar nations. But if you haven't, it's fine, because we're going to give an overview of how important this moment of reset is.
Right, so there are some big dates in the calendar, and we're currently in the middle of a series of important, what we are calling the Quetzalcoatl Pakal prophecy days, which we'll come to in a minute as well, because today is actually a day off in the sequence of 3 out of 4 days. We just had 2 in the previous 2 days. There's another one tomorrow, so it's partly why we held the call today, just to feel into what, if anything, are we understanding about all of this.
But let's give a little background of what it is. So for those of you that don't know, we've been following the 13 glyphs around the tomb lid of Pakal Votan, which is one of those places in Mexico where they found, there it is, so thank you. And we've been following day by day because they are prophecy days, auspicious day, for when enough people were paying attention, we would be activating the new time. And now we're entering, tomorrow we're going to have the galactic sun, meaning sun, yellow sun number 8, which is like a big portal into the galactic information that we're going to access.
Right, so we put this out. I mean, these prophecy glyphs have been known about a long time, since they were discovered on the sarcophagus lid of Pakal Votan, waiting for the moment when they would be recognized at a quantum level, energetic level, as starting to play out. And we started to monitor this from the beginning of this particular Zolkin, which happened sort of roughly about 60 days ago now, just over 2 Gregorian months. And so we started to track when these were going to appear. And what really instantly caught our attention was that many of the first glyphs were all connected to the sun, which also then fed into the fact that we were just doing the solar gateway and, of course, monitoring the sun's activities and learning that we can actually connect to the sun's consciousness through our own solar consciousness, which resides here in our solar plexus, of course. But this is an activation that's been going on as the sun has been spewing out these plasma orbs and various different solar winds. All of this is actually activating our inner world. So as within, so without is actually going to become how our reality changes, weird as that is, because what we have internally should be reflected in our external world. And this is one of the barriers that many people seem to be hitting, us included a little bit, is that our external world is not really mirroring what is happening for us on the inner planes. So this is why we spend so much time in Skywalker mode, which is of course my glyph, but this is the Skywalker wave spell. And the emphasis of the Skywalker is to go out tracking, scouting timelines, energy patterns, to try and find the most relevant information that they can then share with their tribe. Or in the old days, it would have been perhaps a nomadic community, and so they would be looking for the best places to hunt and graze and to build their shelters and so on. But in the more modern era, we're tracking energy patterns, trying to bring in different reference points that can give us some sense of how to navigate what may be about to happen in the coming days or weeks. And of course, we don't know for sure. We just have the energy patterns and we have our meditations. But there is one day that is very much in many people's awareness, which is just 3 days away now, and that is the 25th of May. So the question is, why is that? Well, there's some rabbit hole theories, there's some astrology, and there's Davyd and Bella's take on it too.
Yes.
So,
Before we continue, I want to say hi. We have a global tribe, and we have lots of people that are saying hi on the chat box.
Yes.
You're welcome to post a question there, and we'll try to address it, or just have a conversation with our tribe. So hi to everybody in New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Scotland. We have Ewan in Scotland. We have Eleanor as well, going to the chapel.
Right.
Australia, Ireland, and hi to everybody. We're super excited to have more of those conversations. We want it to be more open because there are many topics. As people are now being presented with the truth that is going to bring us more freedom, there will be many gaps for us to fill in terms of why are some dots connected. So I think many people from our tribe already have had these conversations, and we have had them with them, but we can now share it to the wider tribe.
Right, so we are bringing a lot of pieces here at the beginning. I'm conscious of that as we try to build the Gestalt. This is something that our tribe has become very accustomed to and very good at doing with us, which is pulling in different threads and weaving them into some sort of tableau, or we call it a Gestalt, a picture that makes sense to us, which gives us some sense of how to move forwards in the incoming energies. Now, of course, there is a lot of misinformation out there. There is a lot of fear porn. And if you watch the Gogglebox, it's just straight up lies and illusion. So, trying to be discerning about where we get our information from is important. And of course, you shouldn't necessarily just believe what we say either. We're still trying to put the pieces together ourselves. So we share everything from that position of us trying to decode ourselves what we think is coming, and then trying to share that with you in a way that maybe resonates, or if it doesn't, then you can just let it go, of course. So we're bringing in these different themes: the astrology, the 13 sacred signs from Pakal Vatan, and the sun's activity. And then there is this kind of rabbit hole theory that goes around the 25th of May, the day of 10,000 earthquakes, that apparently emanates off the west coast of the US, somewhere around Oregon.
We'll also talk about the sun.
We're going to talk about the sun too. So we're holding all of these things in our awareness. I've come across this date, the 25th of May, from multiple different channels, all looking at it from different perspectives. But what's really interesting for us is that really seems to tie in with when Saturn enters Aries. So, maybe we should have a look at that first, because that actually happens here on the 24th. It may be that it actually happens for our brothers and sisters down under on the 25th, which would make sense really, because as we've said before, we have increasingly connected to our brothers and sisters in New Zealand and Australia. And as we've done that, we've realized that they're really at the vanguard of the energy patterns hitting the planet, because they're the first ones to receive it. So that would make sense. But what does Saturn in Aries really mean? Well, we've talked a lot about Saturn in Pisces, how Saturn was all at sea, discombobulated, he lost control of time, and really was asked to retire and perhaps take up more of a role as a grandfather. So meanwhile, Uncle Neptune has already left Pisces into the sign of Aries, where he feels a bit like a man released, I would say. He's well over his time in the watery depths. He's looking forward to a new spiritual adventure, because really Neptune is about spiritual adventure and spiritual insights. But now out of the watery depths, we've managed to drain the illusory effects that being underwater can have. And we're now in this fire sign, which is all about go and energy and all about the individual. So what is Neptune, first of all, telling us in Aries? Well, we've been thinking that perhaps he's asking us to elevate ourselves to be an elevated, perhaps cosmic human. And then suddenly Saturn turns up too in the coming days. So what would you like to share about this?
So when it comes to astrology, as you know, we approach it from the archetypal kind of connections that he has. So when it comes to Saturn, it's very much the authority father figure that was very restrictive, putting limits, controlling, and it's very connected to the government that we have had for hundreds of years. And now that we are resetting time and more people are saying, actually, we want to do things in a different way. We want things to be more fair. We want to have more freedom. So he's being now also told there is a new cycle. We're receiving more light from the center of the galaxy, and we are reaching that ascension point. So Saturn is now being forced to change the system, to bring things that are more friendly, that are going to work for everybody, that is more based in communities. So we have to look at all of those planets that are the outer planets. We have Saturn entering Aries, Neptune already enter Aries. We have Pluto already in Aquarius, which is the sign of communities and the new and the quantum and connection to the galactics and all of that part. So there are so many important things happening. It's like everything is getting orchestrated for this moment of, okay, let's go, we're all ready.
Right, so, if we think about Saturn perhaps representing the old paradigm, maybe not the Matrix per se, because that's perhaps more of an extraterrestrial arthropodic energy, but actually really the sort of the controlling figure that was overseeing the system, the structure, telling us what to do and all of those kinds of things. Well, that was fine. That kind of worked for a while. We needed that very sort of yang external energy to experience what that was like. And now we've kind of finished that process and we're coming to the place of, okay, so we did the very yin world in Lemurian Atlantis and we've done the very yang world here in the 3D. And now we have to bring them both to a place of balance and to progress and move forwards. And for me personally, that's what Saturn and Neptune entering Aries feels like. That's the beginning. If we think about the lower notes of Pisces, it can be about delusion, substance abuse, bad medications, all of these kinds of things. So perhaps Saturn is now exiting that very murky world in which he's very much had a hand, and is now moving into the sign of Aries, which is interesting because as all of this happens, there is a lot of disclosure coming around the world of medications and the people and authorities and governments that tried to impose that on all of us. So I think that as that shift happens from Saturn into Aries, that disclosure is going to become very mainstream.
Yep.
It kind of already is, and as Bella alluded to, again, not really in the mainstream news because I don't want it to be, but if you do a cursory scan even through YouTube, you will find so many videos about what is going on in the P. Diddy case, which terrifying and horrible as it is, and the material is not necessarily easy to listen to, it's showing us the level of corruption at the top level, which would of course have been Saturn.
How big the networks are.
And how big the network are. You know, if we go back 10 years, many people got shot down with their conspiracy theories, saying that there was a planetary move, and people just said that's simply not possible. There'd have to be millions of people involved to pull that off. Well, it turns out there were millions of people involved, and that is how they were pulling it off. And perhaps that's where we're now starting to understand just the level and complexity and depth of the system that has kept us in prison. But the good news is that we're now becoming free and sovereign. And as a consequence, we're having to step up and take responsibility for ourselves and every single thing that we do, our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. We've been talking about this a lot. The spiritual imperative to be of a higher consciousness requires you to be actually spiritually disciplined. So that is all part of what is coming through for all of us. And we're just trying to make sense of this in this moment. And in a minute, we'll have a look at the questions, but I'm also holding the whole piece about timelines and Tartaria, because there are some very strange things going on that are part of this process that perhaps we can touch into. Again, we're not going to give any hard and fast theories on things, but we're going to relate it through what some of you have been reflecting back to us and what we've been feeling ourselves at the energy level, not really looking at what's going on in the big picture in terms of the TV, but how we're feeling internally. So perhaps we'll just take some minutes here, Bella, to read through some of the questions that people have got, and then
so one of the first questions was not connected to what we were talking about, but asking about detox of heavy metals.
Right, excellent question. And again, I think that this is going to come very much into the news, particularly this side of the pond with Mr. Kennedy going all guns blazing against all things toxic, metallic and poisonous. Great, finally, somebody has stood up and said it's time that we got healthy and stop poisoning ourselves. It seems kind of straightforward, but apparently it's been beyond us to do that. So with that in mind, we understand that there are heavy metal toxins in almost everything, unfortunately. The sky especially, that's a big piece right now. The chemtrails went away for a bit and came back, and we are now testing a theory, and we want to share this with all of you, that as we step up into the place of being cosmic humans and being empowered, we have the right to say no. No, I do not agree to having stuff sprayed on me that I have no idea what it is, but deeply suspect that it's probably not good for me. And in fact, not only do I not agree on it, I'm calling it out and asking upstairs and the powers that be, the non-physical beings, the extraterrestrial beings that we're working with, the good extraterrestrials, we can say, to look into this, because why are we being sprayed with chemicals that are poisoning us? It's not part of our higher destiny, for sure. So every time any of us see this, we can go through this process, we can log it, we can send it upstairs, we call it an astral memo, but really we can direct it to the most appropriate authorities who are looking at these things and saying, again, we're being sprayed and this is not part of our higher plan, can we have this investigated? So every time we do that, each and every one of us, we're actually adding to a collective imperative of intention that we do not agree to this. And if we do this with all kinds of things, whether it's medications, whether it's spraying poisons in our food, every time one of us comes across something that we think is actually anti-human or we can say life, then we can call it out and send it upstairs. And that's how we can empower ourselves and start saying, no, I do not consent.
I think this is a good segue to talk about how for a long time we had been living under a grid that was controlled through CERN, the Vatican, and a few other nodal points by them doing dark magic and lots of things that were against the life of children, women, plants, and everything, contaminating, polluting all of the elementals. So that grid was what helped them have control of the planet and of our minds, including time. We know that I've been talking about it for a long time, how the Gregorian calendar keeps our mind locked into artificial time so that we could never reconnect to the galactic or universal time and to keep on flowing with the waves of evolution. So because they knew that we were about to jump, that this is the point of ascension, they made sure that they locked us in that time, that way of measuring time, the Gregorian calendar. But thank God, many people now around the planet, thousands of people are following this different system of measuring time, which is more in agreement with the number 13, with our body, with the way things are created in nature. So one of the key things, and that's why it has been one of our missions, in order to repair time and to anchor the highest timeline, the golden timeline for all of us, we need to shift the time, the way we measure time. Even if you just follow the solstices, the equinoxes, and the moons, that is enough for following the clocks that we can connect to and our mind can work with. Even if it's just that, and the astrology would be even better. But if you've jumped into the Mayan time and magic, it's even better, because then we're giving the universe and the mind, the collective mind, a better frame to work with, where we can all be empowered again and create the world that we want.
Right, so to bring it back to the heavy metal question, in relation to what Bella was just talking about, in case you were wondering what was the link, if we are heavily toxified, there are chances that we have a lot of metals in our brain, unfortunately. It's not a very nice thought, but it's definitely something that we need to consider.
And the heavy metals are very connected to things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson,
Morgellons.
So many different diseases, yeah.
Right, so actually we have a wonderful sister of ours, Caroline Mansfield, who we did some videos with about a couple of years ago now, looking into some of the effects of the offered medications and what was being found in the bloodstreams of people who had those medications, and she now has some more research that we're hoping to catch up with her maybe in a week or so's time to do with what's in the chemicals that are being dropped on us. And we know that things like aluminium are toxic to the brain, and we're breathing them in through particles every time we go outside. They're in our food. And what this actually does is it puts metals into our brain that then can be tapped into being a circuit, an electrical circuit through which impulses can be sent, often with brainwashing ideas, like maybe you need to go and have this offered medication. Maybe many of us saw that back in 2020, people who said they were never going to have those medications suddenly overnight went and got them and didn't really understand why. So perhaps we're starting to understand that there is a lot more to the controlling of the human mind space.
The purpose of having fluoride in the water and in the toothpaste, as we know that they've been doing it for decades, is to keep us in a state of that is easy to control us, more what is the word?
Passive.
More passive.
Malleable.
Malleable is a good word. So as now Kennedy has said, many different states in the US are now removing fluoride from the water, thank God. More and more things will be shown, and people will start waking up to the reality. They're not going to be compliant to things that don't make sense and that are for the detriment of their health.
Right, so this is the point of what we're trying to get to. It's these heavy metals and toxins that have been pumped into us en masse over the last 5 years particularly, but probably all of our lives. If I go back to photos of myself as a child in the 80s and I look at the sky, I can see chemical trails in the skies in those photos. So this has been going on a lot longer than we realised, and I actually did a research into that and saw that this has been going on since at least the 60s. But if we go back through history, we can see the various different types of bioweapons that have been released, bubonic plague, the Black Death, maybe even TB, polio, who knows exactly the origins of all of these things. But what we can say is that they all have a very degrading effect on our immune systems. And if our immune system is being degraded, well, we get sick, and first of all, then we have to go to the doctors and get more medication, which then also dumbs down the system. So there is a kind of a cycle here that is to keep us basically dumb and stupid. And so if we can start to decalcify the pineal gland and detoxify the system of particularly the heavy metals, but perhaps even more importantly is the graphene oxide, which has its own intelligence, and maybe we'll do a special video on graphene oxide. I'm probably going to put the link to the video of Caroline, because she talks a lot about that and how graphene oxide can be stimulated by a signal from somewhere into forming its own types of structures inside our bodies. Bearing in mind these things were in the offered medications as well. So we're coming to the point where all of these different bits and pieces are at a critical mass, and perhaps if we don't detoxify, we're not going to be able to receive the light of the sun and the encrypted light codes that are personal to us in the way that we want. But also at the same time, if we're heavily toxified and polluted, our ability to say no and to say, I do not agree with this is not for my highest good, become much diminished, as we saw back in 2020 and 21.
And let's remember that in 2020, the amount of towers that were put all around the planet, 5G towers, and how these waves actually, the EMFs actually react with what we've been talking about with the metals, with the graphene, and how they can form things inside our body. That's why there have been so many clots in the blood of people, and it's part of what we've been talking about with Caroline, and we hope to bring more things. So let's address some solutions as well. One of the main solutions that was given to us when it comes to detoxing these heavy metals is the use of horsetail. You could have tea, you could have it as capsules, you can also do a combination with dandelion, our sponsor, dandelion, which those two are great to detoxify the body, the liver, from all of these heavy metals that go inside of us. And it's something that we need to do regularly. I do it every other week, for example, because we can see it, we can taste it in the water, in the food, the amount of metals that are everywhere.
Right, so we have 3 plants, and we'll share them here again for those of you who are maybe watching this for the first time. We work with dandelion. It's very good at detoxifying, especially the liver, but really gets rid of heavy metals. Horsetail is really good at getting rid of bioweapons, otherwise sometimes known as viruses, and also really good at getting graphene oxide out. Now, if you take horsetail capsules, you will see black flecks of graphene actually come out in your urine when you go to the toilet. So that's one way that you know that you're physically detoxing from this stuff. And the other one that we work a lot with is wormwood. And wormwood is very, very good at removing parasitic beings and energies. These 3 plants, there are others we can use too, but these are the 3 that we recommend to everybody. And we take them on a fairly regular basis. We've done lots of deep dives and detoxes en masse for, a couple of weeks at a time, sometimes in immersion formats, but we generally have all of these medicines around. And if we know that the sun has just gone through something big, then we'll take an extra amount of horsetail, because it's also really good at grounding us when there are solar flares. It kind of acts like a semiconductor, manages to dissipate the energy somewhat. So Bella especially gets affected by the solar flares quite a bit, and so tends to take horsetail as a prep medicine if we think something is incoming.
So hopefully that's the heavy metals, and it's something that we need to keep on reviewing, because it will take a while for us to clear the amount of pollution that they put on us. And I'm hoping that many quantum solutions will be coming to us very soon.
In fact, just on another note, hopefully myself and the brother, Mr. Jackson Main, will get to this, but we have it in our minds and our hearts to try and do a bit more of a sort of a deep dive into the world of viral conditions and plants that help with viruses. So that's incoming maybe in the next couple of weeks. So it seems like we're also being guided here by Spirit to start looking into these toxics and poisons that perhaps many of us watching this have already cleansed, but perhaps we might need to start being in a place to advise family and friends who could suddenly realize that maybe they're not that well and need to detoxify. And of course, the average person in our world does never do detoxes. It's only generally spiritual people who want to get more enlightened to do that. So we still have that to go through with the collective. And maybe also what we're going to see very soon is the rollout of new types of technology, because when people realize that they've been lied to and that they're possibly quite sick off the back of the medications they've been given, there are going to need to be instant solutions. Otherwise, it could be general panic, which is probably why we haven't had widespread this disclosure so far. But I feel like it's very much incoming, particularly in New Zealand, where they have issued a warrant arrest for Mr. Fauci on the basis of the fact that he killed over 100,000 people. So that's out there in the news. That's legal action happening in New Zealand. And perhaps, like we said earlier, with the energy often coming from there first across the planet, we might see more and more countries take those brave steps. So that's a little bit about all of that. So thank you for bringing us that question.
We'll go into the next question then, which is one that we have been kind of talking about with some of our friends in the tribe, and is the topic of Tartaria. In case you don't know what Tartaria is, do you want to give the overview of
So I'm going to try and bring up a little video to just bear with me. So let's see if I can get this. Yeah, let me see if I can play this in the background while I'm talking.
If you do have any questions, please post them here in the chat box, and I'll try to pick them up.
So we can see, sorry that I can't get the full picture there, guys. For some reason it's not playing, but you can see these images here. This is just a random video that I pulled from YouTube. There are lots of videos on the old world buildings of Tartaria. So this is a relatively recent phenomenon that people have been talking about in the last few years. And I have to be honest, when I first tried to do a skywalk timeline track into this, I found it very, very difficult. It felt like it was behind some kind of veil or obscured, which got me wondering about the connections to Atlantis. Because Atlantis has always felt a bit like that too, very impenetrable, very difficult to explore in the astral planes, a bit like we weren't meant to, because the truth could have been too much for us. So the theory is that there is this world called Tartaria, which is real. It kind of covered most of Central Asia, particularly into Russia, and kind of got to the height of its powers somewhere around the 1880s, possibly trailing on into the 1910s.
The early 1900s.
Yeah, into the early 1900s. And a lot of the theories behind this are to do with massive mudslides that seem to actually bury some of these old buildings.
Some kind of energy weapons that could have destroyed that world, yeah.
So, I mean, this is a big piece, and we could sit here for hours talking about all of this. But really, the main premise behind it is that we have a whole forgotten history, civilization that perhaps spanned several millennia on the planet that was somehow erased right in front of us about 200 years ago. And all we have left are these incredibly amazing buildings that, according to conventional history, were sort of knocked up in 5 to 10 year periods, somewhere around the 1880s into the 1900s. And so I'm just going to take that back down and bring us back up to here a second. So we have these old buildings now. When I look at these, and Bella actually said something to me that really caught my attention, they look like they're 3D printed. The designs are incredible. I mean, I've been to many of these kinds of temples in places like India, but we also have them all over Europe. A lot of the old world buildings in Central Europe, they look like they were designed for giants. And so this has led to many theories pondering whether the First World War, the Second World War were really just a mass cleanup job, probably another psyops. And if we look at the last 5 years, I think we should all be questioning all of the history that we've been given from the last 200 years as to whether it's real or not. Strange as that might seem, you know, if we consider the brainwashing, MK Ultraing, and all of the other things that have been going on even in this modern era of technology, imagine how it was for our great-grandparents 100 years ago who didn't have any technology. They probably occasionally got some message from another chap in the village somewhere, and that was the extent of their comms outside of conversations. So it would have been easy to trick people into all kinds of things and convince them, even as far back as the 1930s. I've watched some of the videos and propaganda to get people to go and fight in the Second World War, and they seem eerily reminiscent of many of the things that we've been given to get us to comply over the last 5 years, to go and fight various wars, psychological, physical, etc. So that is Tartaria. In a nutshell, it's believed that at some point in Tartaria, the Nikola Tesla free energy kicked in, and the general premises of this idea is that Tartaria reached this peak place, perhaps of a new Earth frequency with free energy and all kinds of new inventions, and then something terrible happens and it disappears, and then they spend the next 50 years basically deleting the evidence.
And from what we've seen from videos, photos, and let's remember here that AI can now fool us in many different ways. That's why we have to take readings. Is this real? Is it not real? And we invite all of you to do the same in order to be more, to find discernment, and is use your body medicine, use your pendulum, and ask the questions. But what we've seen is that they use sound technology and free energy as well. And they had these wayfarers. And you can see the remains of places in places like St. Louis here in the US, in some areas of Paris, in the UK, and all. I've heard of Russia has probably most of the buildings that are still standing, St. Petersburg. So when we think about that, these buildings were so perfect, were connected to free energy, they had bells. The bells were actually a harmonizing instrument that kept people healthy. You know, the big bells in the churches, in the cathedrals. So all of those bells were removed at some point because everybody was healthy, everybody was had everything, they had free energy. Let's remember here that the key to our freedom is for us to have free energy again at a planetary level, because it's the main way of manipulating humanity. If we have to pay for the energy, which is free and is abundant, they're always going to keep us trapped.
Right, so I have to be honest, at the beginning when I first heard this Tartaria timeline thing, I was pretty skeptical. I was just like, I don't know, there's some parts of it that resonate and some parts that I had difficulty squaring off. The more I've looked at it, the more I found that actually I do concur with it more, and the more that I started to concur with it more and open up that possibility in myself. Interestingly, in my meditations, particularly my flying school plant meditations, I actually started to encounter a world that I was existing on, unbeknownst to me, that looked very much like some sort of steampunk Tartaria from the late 1800s. And so it got me thinking, it's like, well, is there a part of me, my consciousness, another aspect of me that is existing behind a veil, a paywall, we could say, that we are not allowed to see, that was a parallel timeline that went off in a slightly different direction? Maybe it ascended, maybe it got wiped out, maybe both things happened, maybe there's a lesson there, maybe we're going through the same thing. So again, with this particular topic, no hard and fast answers, just lots of interesting questions. But the more that we ask these questions, the more it opens up our mind to be flexible, first of all, and to consider, as many people in our tribe are at the moment, how much of me exists on other timelines, all of which is going to link back in a minute to the crop circle. So there is a point to all of these various threads. Did you want to add something, baby?
Yes, but I lost it. No, you carry on.
So look, we'd love your thoughts and comments in the chat, everybody, on the whole Tartaria timeline piece. But
oh, sorry, I remember.
Go on.
So one of the ways that they have been able to do these timeline shifts and erase history from us and rewrite it is because the people that write the books and the history are all part of the same group that created all of these artificial reality for us, and we're in control of the system. So they wrote the books, they create the wars, they decide who's the good guy and the bad guy. So most of the history they've told us is not true. We have to rewrite it again. They have made sure that they make a lot of fun. They laugh at the issue of ETs or galactic connections and keep us like little children that can ask the questions, because then you get bullied. But now that so many of us have awakened to our galactic history, to the empowerment of who we truly are, to the reality of that we are the ones creating the world around us, and we live in a multidimensional world, and we have access to all of this information. So it's a whole different board game now, and I think this 25th of May is that reset moment, and that's what we're inviting many of you to be paying attention and sending your intentions to the planetary grid, because this is the moment we start building. As the masses actually wake up, we need to start putting the information there.
Right, so with everything in this moment, the more collective awareness and attention and then intention is given to stuff, the more likely it is to happen. That is the basis of manifestation. We can do this at the personal level for ourselves, but if we want to do something collective, a lot of what we're doing with these kinds of videos and with our tribe and many other communities and channels doing the same stuff too, is to try and raise the level of expansion and awareness in humanity's consciousness, so that if there was something like a Tartaria or a whole other timeline of history that's been hidden from us, it's now going to be revealed, so that we don't have this big BS of the last several millennia, going back to the time of Christ and maybe even beyond, and all of these deletions and insertions, all of which has led us into this place of the timeline wars, the so-called timeline tsunami of Atlantis. Now, this is another big topic. We did quite an interesting talk with our sister and colleague Maya Nartumid, which you can find on our YouTube channel, about the timeline tsunami of Atlantis. But essentially the premise of it is this, is that the Dark Mages in Atlantis were mucking around with stuff like CERN, a bit like now, and they overcooked it because they wanted to take control, and the whole thing popped. But what actually happened, somehow, this might also bring in Maldek and Tiamat, there's also some various questions there, but essentially the point of it is that it created a very fragmented, multiple series of timelines. Some of us got fragmented across those timelines and have been repairing ourselves ever since. And in doing so, we've been repairing time. Certainly that happened to me. I've experienced it in this life, having to go through the recollection of a soul fragmentation is not an enjoyable process. And any of you who have the Pegasus Star of Mirak may have had that experience too. So what does that mean? Well, the work really of people like us, but also our ancestors, people like the Yeshua Christo Sophia consciousness, were also time travelers repairing time across various points because of what happened in Atlantis. So this work has been going on for thousands of years. So as some of us have been repairing time, other more nefarious characters have been going further and further back in time, trying to hijack it. So if you can imagine, this has been going on for several thousand years of two opposing forces time traveling backwards and forwards through time, trying to gain control of the timeline. You can understand what a mess it's all been. So a lot of the really the mission of myself and Bella and many other people doing this similar kind of work, Matthias de Stefano, another one doing a lot of great work reclaiming time, is to reconnect the one unified time code timeline that is the universal timeline. Now that actually has already happened some months ago, in fact, quite palpably around Christmas time, in fact. But because most people, A, are not aware of that, B, don't even know that there are other time codes outside of the Gregorian calendar, it's going to take a little while for that structure to dissolve. But with Saturn now moving, Saturn of course being Chronos, the Lord of Time, now moving into Aries, there is the high potentiality that the Gregorian calendar, which was originally based on taxation purposes, by Julius Caesar, but going back as far as the Sumerians, the control mechanism that Saturn basically was given, which was the Gregorian calendar, is going to dissolve. So what happens when it dissolves? Well, part of our reality is going to dissolve. And if the 1260 calendar is dissolving because it's fraudulent and fragmented and basically manipulative and controlling, then we're going to need something else. And that is why we place so much energy in working with the 1320 Zolkin calendar, because it gives us the opportunity to work creatively with all of these different energy patterns rather than having a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday working week experience, all of which is very much a part of our complicitness and our dumbing down, because it keeps us in this very boxed in way of doing things. So all of that is kind of by way of answering Shane Malloy's questions. Thank you for those, Shane from Ireland. We got there in the end, brother.
So I wanted to add that when it comes to Atlantis, they were making many of the mistakes that the Cabal was doing here in the planet,
it's
like
the same people.
genetic modification, weather modification, control, taxation, time, everything that we've seen with the misuse of technology was happening then. And now we've gone through the next test of, are you going to keep on doing the same and therefore destroy this planet again? Or are we ready to jump? And I think the answer that the universe or source or God got from many humans at this time, and many of you probably part of this group, is we want something different. We want a new earth, and this is the first time that we're going to go through this point of ascension, is still connecting 3D, bringing heaven to earth, meaning bringing the 5D into this 3D world. And this is the reason why so many different galactic groups are paying attention and monitoring and helping this process, because it has never happened before, not in this form.
Right, so basically and essentially we're going through a structural reformation. Our reality, our governing structures, but really that's a reflection of what's going on inside of us. What are our governing structures? Are we being guided by the government and the monarchy, or are we being guided by God and the Christ consciousness and Yeshua and Sophia and these higher imperatives? Are we being guided by our own internal galactic assistants? You know, once we understand that we can talk to our own off-planet aspects of ourselves, our Arcturian selves, our Andromedan selves, Nibiruan selves, because we contain the DNA for all of that within us. So the easiest way to communicate with that aspect of ourselves is to go inwards and communicate with the part of us that is directly connected to that. That is really what the sun has been doing, I feel, over the last month or so with all of these big explosions and solar flares. Is it's been sending these light codes into us to activate our DNA, to activate our solar consciousness, and to fill us with more light. But if we have all of these toxins and poisons, then it can be uncomfortable, because two sort of opposing forces are coming into a place where they don't sit, a bit like oil and water. And so that is why all of these things are important. But I think to come to Shane's point, I'm not sure about the Virgo aspect, brother, but certainly in the next 3 or 4 days, I think we should all be paying attention for sure. We're on, I wouldn't say a high alert, but we're in a state of preparedness for anything that might happen. Lots of talks of blackouts and EBS and all kinds of the day of 10,000 quakes. Now, that may or may not be possible. My feeling is that would only probably be caused by some sort of high-powered weapon. I don't want to call that in, but that's also one of the rabbit hole theories. So there are also many things happening on our planet that are being attributed to the sun, which I don't think are anything to do with the sun, but are being hidden behind that. So we also have to be a little bit careful about naturally assuming that what we're being told the sun is doing here on the planet is actually that.
So before we go into the topic of the sun, one of our intentions, not with the tribe and through these calls, is to not fall into fear, because that is how they have always controlled us. We have to do things from a place of high consciousness and knowing that our intentions count. If you are aligned with what you're thinking, with what you're saying and you're feeling, and we're all connected as a community, we have more of an impact on the kind of reality that we create. That is why we don't want to come to this from a point of fear, but we're all ready, but we know what we want, and what we want is to go through this jump and make sure that we make it to the other side, while everybody else receives the amount of disclosure and information that we've been waiting, or we've heard about for a long time, but they haven't, and we need to hold space for them, but keep on building the new.
So all of these different factors, again, I just want to really reinforce what Bella just said. This is not a time to be afraid. In fact, if you're experiencing fear, I would absolutely invite you to keep meditating into that every time you feel it. It's the only way is through. If you keep trying to push it away or not deal with what it is you're afraid of, it's going to keep coming back at you, and it's going to probably increase, because that is what the sun is trying to do. It's trying to basically alchemize all of these lower density emotions and frequencies, of which fear is one of the lowest ones. It's also how we get manipulated. By projecting very intense experiences to us in the astral realms. That has been going on a lot in general over the last 5 years, but particularly the last 3 or 4 months. Why? Because we were getting to this critical point, and so that is why many people have been having suicidal thoughts or depression or very grey world. It's pointless, there's no point to carry on. That's because of the energy being projected at us from somewhere, still not quite sure where, into our mental energetic space, otherwise known as the astral planes or our emotional body. If we have unresolved traumas or deep-rooted programs that could have been put into us through medications or in the dream time, in the sleep, then chances are that those are getting activated. So every time you get activated into a place of fear, anxiety, or overwhelm, do perhaps the opposite of what most people would do and actually go, you know what, I'm going to go into this. I'm going to confront it and see what it is I'm afraid of.
And ground.
Am I afraid of something that's being told to me on the TV? Is it really real? Do I have any evidence myself that what I'm being told is real? If you don't, then I would say it's not your reality. You know, that's the other thing, is that there are many threads trying to pull us into a reality that certain groups want to create, but they need our energy and our consent to do that. So this is where we keep saying, no, I do not consent to this. And the more that more of us say no, the less able those powers will be able to control us in that way.
And since this conversation is also about bringing solutions, so yes, definitely check in with yourself. Do you have any emotional backdoors, any programs, any patterns? Have you done your detox? Have you grounded? What is the astrology of the moment? And if you've done everything and you still feel out of shape, we offer quite a few things, like the Activating the Grail, where Davyd does a whole energetic clearing, and I go into the programs and biodecoding, and we also look at your galactic signature. If you still don't know what your purpose, your mission is, then that's part of the process that we guide you with. But always, every conversation we have, we want to bring solutions, and you can also post some of the solutions. The idea is that we all help each other.
So thank you again, Brother Shane. Yes, hopefully we gave some little indications there for you and everyone else listening over the next few days. Again, there are many days that we perhaps anticipated things happening over the last 8 months, really. I know that many astrologers out there also picked many of the days that we thought. In the 3D outplay, it doesn't look like some of the things we expected did happen. However, if we go into meditation, and I'm going to try and answer you and Rob's question here about Tartaria at the same time. If we go into meditation, which I do every day for normally a couple of hours, and then tune my attention into a non-physical part of myself, and my radio dial spectrum is quite broad these days because of all of the inner work that I've done, and so I can communicate with my angelic self or my great feline Syrian Navy self, and I can get information from them. And so when I do that, what it really allows me to do is to rise above the manipulative realms of the fourth dimensional astrals, which have largely been cleared up. If I look at the astrals now compared to 5 years ago, wow, what a difference. It's like there's so much less. I'd say we're probably down to like 5% of the astrals needing to be clean, but that 5% probably is only now in the physical or the energetic spaces of humans. We can no longer point the finger at mum and dad, to the mafia bosses, the cartels, and say, you did this to us, you kept us slaves.
No more victim.
No more victim. Being a victim is an easy excuse not to take action. Even if we have been victims, and we're not saying that we haven't, and we have been slaves, we also in previous timelines were the perpetrators and the slavers. So we're also going through a sort of a karmic rebalancing, which is also another deep meditation to contemplate, because in the end, all karma has to be balanced in the dualistic space so that we can progress. That's part of the teaching and the learning. It's not meant to trip us up or catch us out or get us into bad shape. It's meant to educate us about the nature of duality. So
let's go into the topic of the sun then.
Hold on, I wanted to answer Ewan's question first. So just to come to what Ewan was asking, was Tartaria confined to being limited to being within 3D energy? I don't think we can ever say that about anything really, to be honest, Ewan, because my understanding is that 3D is a construct of the higher imperatives from the non-physical realm. So what comes down into 3D is largely the manifestation of what is in our dreams and our awareness. So we can see the physical evidence of Tartaria if we subscribe to that idea of these old buildings that supposedly were built at a time, 200 years ago. We can't even build buildings like this now, to be fair. So there is something in that. What I have experienced potentially, particularly over the last couple of weeks, as the veil has been dissolving, Manana McClear's 100 days of the dissolution of the veil came to pass the day before the full moon, is that as that's happened, this other energetic timeline that actually feels and looks like Victorian world, steampunk world, is starting to appear. And there is an aspect of me and my family that is also there, which is kind of weird. So I don't know what to make of that. I definitely invite all of you into meditation. Ask your higher self. Ask, is there a part of me that is existing on a Tartarian timeline? And if so, can I communicate with it? Because maybe what we're now seeing is that the Atlantean timeline is the Tartarian timeline come to its conclusion before maybe something happened. And perhaps now two timelines are going to come into a point,
Convergence.
a convergence, thank you, Bella, a singularity. And perhaps that's why many of us have started to feel this world of Tartaria. Maybe you haven't, maybe you have, that's for you to find out. But I do sense that with this incoming Saturn ingress into Aries, Mercury also conjuncts Uranus that day, so again more of the Uranian energy, maybe a big surprise message,
big information,
big information coming
big
through,
disclosure.
maybe big disclosure. We also, many of us have our eyes on the financial world and the QFS and the collapse of the old system, which has already happened at the energy realms quite a long time ago, but still we're being forced, many of us, to work in this system. Perhaps that's going to be dissolved, because it also needs to be dissolved. So
let me just intercept here that we're planning to have a special group to talk about quantum abundance, quantum wealth within our tribe, because we feel that if enough of us are paying attention and creating a new system that is going to work, that's what is going to be birthed with the consent of many of us, and not something that we just had to accept without knowing exactly what it is. So if you want to know more about it, come to our website and we'll be posting the information about that.
Yeah, so I'm just, so Shane, of course, we know Stefan, we've done videos with him, we give him a big shout out all the time. The brother's doing amazing work and really is our go-to communicator with the sun. Really useful information, so big love to that, brother. Tia, yes, not saying a loud no can be sometimes taken as a quiet yes. Sometimes we say no inside of our head and think that's enough, but sometimes we actually need to maybe just kind of say a no out loud. No, that doesn't work for me. I don't agree with that. I don't see why I should have to do this to comply with you when this is going to be detrimental for me. And perhaps sometimes we need to be able to say no to some things and actually walk away from them. And have that strength and courage. So really appreciating that. So also Shane's talking about bridging heaven on earth is merging the lower Dantian, the lower three chakras, and the upper Dantian chakras with the heart. Yes, I mean, we talk a lot about chakra realignment. We're learning more about the chakras in general, and particularly the solar plexus at the moment. So all of these, I think, perhaps investigation lines for each and every one of us to add to the collective understanding. We do a lot of this in our QPW tribe on our live calls. We get lots of information from everybody who's looking at the same issues, and we try to make sense of it collectively. I think it's much more exciting that way, and it's much better to have a whole bunch of awake people's meditational experiences into one pot than just one person's.
So talking about the sun, I think is very important to mention. We just completed the wave spell of the sun, and we did it live with a group in our website, and it was so important because we had to receive the energy. It was about receiving the energy of the sun, igniting our inner sun, our solar plexus, and receiving the codes that are going to help us in this final part of the ascension process. And besides that, it was reconnecting us to our true self, our true identity, to realize that we're so much more that we've been told or that we have been kind of made believe. So it was so important. If you haven't done any work with the sun, we highly recommend it. We know that it's in full activity, solar maximum. We had an X flare just last week, which is the highest of this year. So the sun is talking to us, and we can have a conversation with the sun and prepare to receive all of those new codes, which are actually the ones that prepare our energy body, our light body, for the next part of the process. We're becoming cosmic humans. And there is a whole idea of a cosmic egg, which is a golden egg. And we're just about to crack this egg open with all of these beings, like who we truly are, is about to be birthed at this moment.
I mean, I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, and this is just my own personal experience, and it might sound kind of weird, but I feel like I'm consciously, from a waking, alive space, giving birth to a new aspect of myself, my own inner cosmic star child. Now, normally that can happen when we ascend, which is often at the point of death. But the whole point of this experiment, as we understand it, is that we are going through a live death and rebirth process from the waking state into something new. Totally far out, crazy. I don't think it's ever been done before, which is perhaps why things are feeling a little strange. So to bring all of this to a point of conclusion as we enter the last 5 to 10 minutes of this live stream, is to understand that perhaps some of us, I'm just going to share from my own place, I've had lots of memories coming up from all parts of my life, not necessarily connected or anything, but when I felt into them in meditation, my guides were like, maybe just say thank you and goodbye to those memories, because they're going to dissolve, because you did all of the work from those timelines. And so those timelines that had pain and sorrow and suffering, where we've gone back into our own childhoods, our own past timelines and done that work, that pain and suffering doesn't exist anymore. So those timelines have fundamentally changed, and as they change, they come forwards into this present moment where we also get healed from them. And if we're doing ancestral bloodline work, maybe family members do too. So as that happens, and as we do all of that healing work that's behind us, those timelines all change. And what I've been experiencing is a dissolving of my own past, to the point where I'm like, even though I have memories from earlier in my life, they don't really seem to be so attached to me anymore. They seem like a different person, or they literally seem like they're from another timeline. A bit like how I sometimes view my adventures as a Templar, as a pirate, as a Crusader on other timelines. Some of us have got those sort of memories and imprints from those timelines, but all of that is coming into a place now of this singularity, and perhaps Saturn in Aries is that moment. So if you've had anything like this, sort of memories coming up, or a sense of some sort of inner dissolving, or a reconfiguration on the inner planes, or maybe different parts of your body, like the solar plexus, many of us are feeling super hot in that area. It's been about a week now that my solar plexus has been running hot. I'm not freaked out by it. I just think it's perhaps getting ignited and activated, and perhaps that's something I'm going to have to get used to. Maybe we're going to become more aware of all of our chakras pulsing and vibrating as our bodies get freed up from these toxins and poisons, and perhaps as our reality changes. Again, this is super rabbit hole stuff, and who knows, but maybe this is the Truman Show moment, where the curtains come back, the lights go on, and we realize that we were just on a huge set. I mean, in many ways, Mother Earth is like a huge set for us to go through this experience, but maybe there's going to be a moment where we look up in the sky and the sky's going to look different, or, again, internal should be matching the external. And if my internal world is light-filled and glorious and shiny, then my outside world should be too, and that should be the same for all of us. So as long as we keep holding these intentions and keep doing that work and keep checking in, is my inner world, is it bright and shiny, multidimensional, filled with my allies, or is it dark and gloomy and oppressive and all of these energies? If it is, definitely start taking the detoxification medicines and meditating more. We say this all the time. This is a moment for spiritual discipline. At least 15 to 20 minutes a day is important.
And we've laid out a whole path in QPW, where we teach how to go through the different dimensions. The 13 dimensions is working with the 13 tones. That's called the Navigation Guide to Quantum Consciousness. We've created heaven on earth so that you can actually integrate all of the elementals within you, and you can work with your own medicine wheel and the different layers that you can add to it. So there are many different tools if you haven't done anything. But I'd say above all is that you know your mission, your life purpose, and that we are so much more. Who are you truly? And allow yourself to shine from that point. Thank you, Shane, for that beautiful comment. I recently had a beautiful memory of me as a child being in awe of the cosmos. It was like a dream recall, but it was genuine. Many people are experiencing that type of dream or vision, or just the feeling of being part of a much larger reality.
And also, thank you, Brother Shane. You've just alerted me to May the 29th. So I just had a quick look in my forward planner, my Skywalker energetic planner. And May the 29th is the day that we have a Mercury Cazimi at 9 degrees of Gemini, which is exactly where Aldebaran is. So that must be what you're picking up on. That's also the day of the beginning of the next wave spell, the White Magnetic World Bridger. So maybe to conclude, just to bring in the mind stuff, we're in the wave spell of the Red Magnetic Skywalker. Really, the role of the Skywalker is to go out into the periphery of consciousness, bring back information to share. Exactly how we're doing now. I'm kind of doing my Cosmic Skywalker work and doing this, sharing it all with you from my meditations and my journeys. That is our job. But at some point, it needs to be brought heaven to earth, which is where the Skywalker and the World Bridger have a very conjoined relationship. You will always find if you have a Skywalker glyph that your analog glyph is the World Bridger. Why? Well, generally Skywalkers need World Bridgers and people with Earth glyphs to bring the more far out stuff down into a place where it can be utilized, converted into something useful. So that's really interesting, Shane, and thank you for alerting us to that. So that's another big sun moment. It's a Mercury Cazimi, so Mercury is going to get combusted. It happens 3 times a year, so the Mercury Cazimis are perhaps a little less potent than, say, the Uranus Cazimi that happened the other day. And hopefully some of you in our YouTube membership managed to catch the video on the Sedna Cazimi that I put out for yesterday. That also felt very important in the rolling on of the story. So if you follow our Quantum Compass and Cosmic History Code shows and some of the other live calls we do, there's actually a flow of a narrative, and we can track this particularly through the movements of the sun and the moon. And talking of the movements astrologically, today we have a beautiful transit, everybody, when Venus trines Mars. So very good for those harmonious masculine-feminine relationships, hopefully. So in amongst all of these other energies, we do have these nice little harmonious transits too.
So I'm going to just, before we wrap up, a few things connected to stellar nations. Many of you have done stellar nations or are learning stellar nations. So the alignment that sparks Aldebaran, which is a 5D star, it's at 9 degrees of Gemini. And that is a world or a star that is connected to the home of the guardian angels. So if that is being sparked on the 29, it means that we're having divine intervention to help us at this point. And it sends impulses and dreams and messages to our lives so that we can keep on track or on our ascension process. So that's Aldebaran on the 29, but I wanted to mention a few others. At 29 degrees of Pisces, which is where Saturn is as it's about to shift into Aries, we have a star called Shiad, and it's a star connected to the Pegasus, the stellar nation of the Pegasus, and it's a cosmic station. So if we think that Saturn is there, Neptune already went through, but Saturn is now coming, and is where we receive, or Saturn will be receiving, the thought waves directly from source, meaning that it's getting the instructions from the divine mind, from the ascended masters, and from the angels for this new cycle. So Saturn is being right now instructed before it goes into Aries. So it's receiving mission codes on what is going to happen in the planet now, the messages that need to be transmitted to the communities. I feel that this is part of our role as well. We're meant to be connecting more with the community and have more of those open conversations, because many people are going to have many questions, and amongst all of us, we can resolve or help each other out. And this star at 29 degrees of Pisces as well, Shiad, is the how to enter the celestial worlds is how we access the golden keys. So all of the process of doing the inner work and be paying attention to the stars, to the movements, the astrological movements, and where we are at the moment is how we receive the golden keys and our missions to go into the next part of the journey. So I thought it was very relevant to mention it. Then we have Pluto, who we know is already at 1 degree of Aquarius, and it activates a star called Albireo, which is one of the bird's stellar nation, and is giving us the new biological map of life, the original blueprints, meaning that our bodies, the plants, and the animals, we're all receiving the original blueprints to start this new world. So that one I think is super key. And at the same degree, 1 degree of Aquarius, we also have a dolphin star that gets activated by Pluto, which is Alpha Sagitta. And it's where the dolphins are going to help all of these masses. They're going to take many souls that have decided not to go in this journey. This is part of a conversation we need to have. Not everybody is coming to New Earth for contracts that we have done even before we came here. So this dolphin star is going to help many of those souls return to source and help them through the astral realms. The final star I want to mention is a whale star, activated at 2 degrees of Aries. So it's going to get activated very, very soon by Saturn and Neptune, and it's called the Deneb Katos or Difta, and it's the exit of the prison, the exit of the matrix. Finally, the whole planet exits within the next few weeks or months. We know that we are about to finish the storm year within the 13-moon calendar. So as we come to the end of that, which is in July, all of those things are going to be happening. So this is the bridge of ascension and redemption. As we hit this star, this whale star, that is the bridge of ascension and redemption.
So there you have it, everybody. It's kind of make or break time. And again, we're not here to spread doom and gloom. I think quite the opposite. We're here to give the optimistic notes. And, you know, we prefer to take our information from the stars, from the planets, and from the sun and the moon directly. We find that the information is generally a little more accurate and correct to what we need, rather than trying to take our clues and cues from the goggle box. So that's just how we do things. Tomorrow is another one of the Quetzalcoatl prophecy days, and it's really important because it's the yellow galactic sun. So for those of you that don't know, whenever we have a galactic tone, that's day 8 of any wave spell, and it is always the same glyph as the previous wave spell, which in this case was the yellow magnetic sun. So the reason that we have these days, always day 8 of any wave spell, is to integrate what happened in the previous wave spell. So tomorrow, literally, the 23rd of May, is a day for all of us to integrate what happened to us during the previous fortnight with the solar gateway, the yellow magnetic sun wave spell. And even if you weren't in our immersion, you would still be receiving those light codes and information from the sun. So I think that perhaps the way I'd like to finish this, Bella, is just to invite everybody into this different kind of news service. Start taking your information maybe from somewhere that is going to resonate at a physical level. You know, I think probably the sun is the boss, and he probably supersedes all other lines of communication, particularly those coming from mainstream media. So we share this as a way to help us integrate ourselves. We find doing these very useful. It helps us focus our minds, and really invite you all to do the same thing. You know, we have our own diaries and guides where we map everything out, and I find that really, really useful because it helps me to plan what's coming, but also when I look back through the diaries and the charts over the last few months or last year or so, I can see these patterns that crop up on certain days with certain glyphs and certain eclipses and certain full moons. And that is showing me how to loop across various timelines. Some timelines we're working in are for healing, some are for manifestation, some are for wisdom learning, some are for teaching. And we've sort of realized by working with the Zolkin for the last few years that you can tap into these through the energies of the glyphs. So a Skywalker wave spell is perfect for sort of consciousness exploration. A blue hand of healing is perfect for healing, and you know, and the yellow magnetic sun, perfect for working with the sun. So we have these kind of storylines that are being created by paying attention to the incoming universal time codes, which also, amazingly, seem to correspond with things that are going on in our external world. What are the chances of the biggest X-class flare happening during the yellow magnetic sun wave spell of this year? What are the chances of the highest amount of solar activity happening during the wave spell of the yellow sun? You know, and so it goes like this. You get the idea, everybody. So as we move forwards over the next few days, please do, for those of you who particularly were working during the solar gateway, see what comes up for you in relation to what came up for you during the sun wave spell, but also to have your eyes on the next few days, particularly the 24th, which is a red solar dragon. More solar energy this time with the dragons, of course, which we've done a lot of work with, but also Saturn enters Aries that day and Mercury conjuncts Uranus. So some big energy there ahead of the so-called big day on the 25th. Maybe something happens, maybe nothing. Again, just be prepared, everybody. Don't be afraid. Nothing to be worried about. In fact, if something big does happen, it tells us that we're probably already almost there.
Another nice message from Jenny Moss.
Yay.
Still living the wave spells. I journeyed inwards today and cleared various fragments from different lifetimes and timelines where the fall happened, and cleared lots more around feeling responsible. Yes, thank you for that reminder, Jen. We need to clear the process of guilt because it could be stuck in a fragment somewhere and it could become a pattern in this lifetime. So thank you for that reminder. And Jenny is also asking any chance you can post this point somewhere. I would say rewatch the live and make your notes, because our notebooks are full of notes for every single day. We also map out the astrology, we map out the wave spells. So I think our advice is just journal and follow the navigation through Quantum Compass.
Right, so if you've been watching this maybe a little bit new to our work or have been dipping in and out, we are much more now in a continuous flow across the QPW platform here on YouTube. I do daily short videos. They're only 3 minutes, but just a day ahead of time to give people something as a little benchmark for the incoming glyph. I know many of you are finding that useful. Bella probably will do another one of deeper mind glyph readings in one of the upcoming wave spells. We're just feeling into the wave spells of the storm and the human. We know that something wants to emerge, possibly another emotional journey, but in this moment with the Skywalker, it feels like we're being very much asked to be with our own higher dimensional awareness and to see what comes through as an inspiration that we then want to bring down and bridge the worlds with. Whatever is in our higher awareness is probably part of our divine mission codes. And maybe we've had it in our awareness for a while. Maybe we have no idea. Maybe the sun is going to bring that tomorrow, even with the integration of the sun. So all of these things moving forwards are all part of the shift. As above, so below. As within, so without. And, you know, keep tracking the days. Every day is important. Journalize. I make little notes. What happened on the collective today? What happened for me personally? Often the two seem interlinked. The more you do that, the more what you're doing is actually rewiring the neuro pathways of your brain to understand how to think about things differently. It does take a while. It's taken me a couple of years actually to really wire myself out of how I was living before with a Monday to Friday work mentality, Gregorian calendar, got to be productive, into something that's a little bit more like I still enjoy doing my things, but I'm also trying to just be more. Go and sit in the garden, take 20 minutes, meditate, talk to the woodpeckers, say hello to dandelion, you know, those things that we feel good afterwards.
So there's a nice message from Elbert. The glyphs and oracles are very helpful. Absolutely. Once you do your galactic signature and you know what allies you have on your oracle, it's so good to know that as a guide you have a glyph and an energy you can work with. You understand what your challenge is and how after you integrate your challenge it can be your gift. You know what is the ally energy or the analog energy, what is your hidden helper or subconscious helper. So if you don't know any of those things, come to the website. I also do galactic activation readings if you want to find out more about that. And to wrap up today's call, this is the wave spell of the Skywalker, meaning bringing heaven to earth. So we are bridging, and the day of manifestation is day 10, which, surprise, surprise, it falls on May 25th. So I think this is the moment we're going to be bridging the two worlds. And what happens right after this wave spell? We enter the World Bridger wave spell. So we are bridging, we're entering that process of bridging the two worlds. We're going into new earth, but we're still here. So we're going to be living both, stepping into both worlds and integrating it. And that's why we need so many of you. doing your inner work and knowing and creating what are your dreams, what is it that you have to share with the world, can you share it with the community, and where are we all going? Because the aim is unity consciousness, where we create as one for the highest good of all. Thank you.
So thank you, Free Lion, for your comments. Really appreciate that. If you do like what we do, we are trying to help everybody make sense of the energy patterns. We talked about this on a live call, sort of a checklist. If you're having a bad day, feeling overwhelmed, anxious, take a run through these different points. So that video is available to watch. It's in our QPW tribe. If you're new to this work and don't know what your mind glyph, and this all sounds new and exciting, head over to quantumplanet.world. Go and just join up. It just takes 2 seconds. It's free. And you can join into the group discussions, and you can say, hey, I'm new to this. This is all we need is your birthday, and we can tell you what your mind glyph is. Once you open that door, you're opening the door to understanding your galactic essence. I know once Bella activated mine 3 years ago, my life has been never the same since. And all of the stuff that we've done in the last 3 years has been part of that process. So really, really powerful stuff. We do have a couple of special offers going on at the moment on 2 of our courses. 50% off our Heaven on Earth course, which is really going inwards, working with your dragon codes, working with your inner elemental energies. And we also have 50% off the Navigation Guide to Quantum Consciousness. That is a very, very profound journey through 13 chapters of each of the 13 days or 13 tones of the 1320 calendar.
How to integrate your multidimensional self in 13 steps. So highly recommend the Navigation Guide.
So if you're new and want to go further into this, use Skywalk50 as the coupon code at the checkout, and that is running until the end of this wave spell on the
May 28th.
28th, exactly. So lots coming. We do have a YouTube membership program too. I just put out a special half-an-hour video update on the Sedna Kazemi that happened yesterday. Again, giving more information about what Sedna being combusted in Gemini is about, but also the fallen angel stars, the Pleiadian stars that were getting activated. All very much part of the same story. And once you get to learn how to filter across these cosmological, astrological imprints, you start to get the bigger story much more clearly, and it's amazing just how coherent it actually is. So you can join the YouTube membership for just $9.99 a month.
Another nice message, Francis Chirmuta. Patterns are starting to present themselves like mini mission sprints within the wave spells. Absolutely, that is what the wave spells do. They're containers for you to do your inner work, and each one of them has a theme. This wave spell of the Skywalker, the theme is adventure, exploration, bringing heaven to earth, exploring your multidimensionality as well.
Want to give a big shout out to the brother in Africa. Welcome, Francis. Good to see you here on the call, brother. We are truly a global tribe. We have brothers and sisters on pretty much every continent across the planet. And when we come together in our emotions and do grid work and healing work and journey work together, it's uber powerful. And we have quite a few tribe members who've probably done more than 20 of these with us now over the last 3 years. And so we have that collective unified field in our tribe. And we're always opening our arms and welcoming new brothers and sisters in. And as we do that, our collective intelligence, wisdom, and ability to share powerful, positive intentions into the collective noosphere expand. And that is really what this is all about. And that is how we, the humans, are we the cosmic humans, are we the creators.
I'm going to leave you with a question. So we've been connecting to our guides and see where is it that we need to accompany the tribe again on another wave spell, because there are very important ones in this castle. As we finish this wave spell of the Skywalker, the next one is the World Bridger, and then after that is the Storm. And then after that is the Human. So we personally, I feel the Storm would be a very important one to support the collective. But please post in the chat box, which of those 3 do you feel we as a collective, as a tribe, should be jumping on, so that we hold space for the whole for the planet.
And as Bella said, and perhaps we didn't quite conclude, we are looking to set up a quantum wealth abundance system group to look at the incoming new world of quantum finances, and perhaps to see if we can collectively shape something that works for us, maybe our own coin. That's part of our higher imperatives moving forward. So we're going to be chatting more about that on live calls. Again, we have regular live calls on QPW that you can join, which is much more face-to-face, lots of interaction, lots of sharing. I know that many of us love these calls. We get a lot of personal value from it. So that's really it for today. Thank you everybody for joining. Big love to everybody. A big shout out to the brother Josh. He is the third part of our team. He very rarely ever appears, but none of this would be possible without him. So we're sending you a lot of love, brother, because I know that everyone really values the work that you do behind the scenes, as indeed do we. None of this would really have happened without you, bro. So if you get to hear this, we love you, dude. So that's it, pretty much everybody for today. Again, a little bit of apologies. The tech didn't quite work out. We're still working with that. These are crazy days, and so I think taking everything in your stride is a good motif, and still showing up and trying to do the best you can is literally the best that you can. So thank you everybody. Thank you Julie, thank you Shane, thank you Tia, thank you Ewan, Colette, Elbera, Francis, and all of the other people who've commented. Thank you for supporting us on this. The live replay will be out later on the YouTube channel for everybody to watch back.
In Lakesh.
In Lakesh, everybody. I'm another you, and see you all again very soon. Bye for now.